Hello, everybody. It's Ashwin Rao today, and as you can see, I am here with somebody else. And today we are bringing Kevin Wilson from Caswell Boot Company onto the channel. And Kevin, welcome. It's an honor and a pleasure to have you here.
No, I appreciate it. No, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I got interested in Caswell just seeing kind of what you were doing. Honestly, what really grabbed me initially about your brand was some of the leathers you were offering. And I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that, but I wanted to hear more about you, your life, and how
Yeah.
the brand Caswell kind of came to be. Just because my understanding is you came from a place similar to me as somebody who was really enthusiastic about boots, but I wanted to hear from you about that journey.
Yeah. No, so I mean, a lot of people know it kind of started off as a obsession that kind of spiraled into a Kickstarter campaign that kind of spiraled into what you see today.
Yeah.
So pretty much started off as a collector, similar to pretty much everybody else. Wanted something a little bit different. Wanted to kind of add my own taste and flavor to it. So from there, just started to do a lot more research and kind of grew that into the idea of a brand. And that's kind of what I brought to the Kickstarter campaign when I first started. Kind of just put it together, make it make sense,
Yeah.
and kind of dive off into everything from lasting to patterning to the whole business side of it as well, which is
Yeah.
a good amount. And from there, just expand a lot of knowledge and try to be a student of the craft and kind to figure out how I can kind of make something a little bit more different
Yeah.
than what's kind of already out there with the
Yeah.
leather selection and grow it into different lines. So
Well, that's super cool. I was actually curious about your last. You mentioned last development. I'm curious
yeah,
about a lot of things about your brand, but one of the things I've noticed about your last and wearing your boot, I have your Stanton boot, which I absolutely
yeah,
love, which is my understanding built on the Harris last, if I'm not mistaken. You have the
yeah,
Harris
yeah,
and the Floyd, and now this new last, the that's coming out with your most recent release from Indonesia. But what I noticed about your last is that they kind of have that American style to them because you're based in the US and
yeah,
but they feel a little bit more dressed up or sleek. I mean, I'm in a work environment where I wearing a work boot doesn't really make sense, but I like the heritage style. And I absolutely love that about your boot. It just fits me super well and it feels a little bit more trimmed down, I guess is the best way to put it. And I was kind of curious about how you developed your last and how that came to be.
when you make a last out of Spain, pretty much a lot of the brands are going to get their last either from Hormas in Mexico or potentially Springline, or there's a couple of different last makers out of Spain.
Sure.
They're going to be various modified lasts. You can go full custom. So I use a range of different lasts, kind of all over the board, but generally I have certain dimensions that I like to work with. And so from there, like last makers in certain regions are going to make lasts a specific kind of way. And so for the Spain line specifically, we use a couple of different lasts that are going to be on the more dressier side. Going to be a little bit more like a soft almond toe box to
Mhm.
more of a softer round toe box that you'll see with the Harris last for the most part. Yeah, and trying to keep it still a little bit on the dressier side. That's just our that's kind of how we wanted the brand to kind of portray itself as a kind of casual, dressier brand for the most part.
Yeah.
So a lot of the lasts you're going to see specifically out of the Spain line are going to be on the, something you can kind of wear in a casual and a professional setting.
Yeah.
Based on the leather choice, of course, because we're in some crazy looking bison colors. So bison tannages. So it just really varies.
Well, I think your brand comes along at a perfect time because the workplace has gotten a lot more casual. I'm able to wear everything from high-end, dress wear and dress shoes to boots without blinking an eye. And I think that is probably reflective of the broader market, at least here in the US, is that it's become more casual, which gives you the opportunity to explore leathers and styles and lasts. But it's still nice to have something that doesn't look like it's meant to be on a construction site, at least for
Yeah.
So for me, a White's boot, as much as I would love it, or a Nick's boot, it would not fit in the medical setting. But something like yours with the Stanton really just blends in perfectly with a pair of chinos, which I just love. So super excited that you are here. Yeah, I was curious about, you kind of alluded to this, but where you see yourself in the shoe market, in the boot market,
Yeah.
both in the US and the broader community, like where you're positioning yourself, because coming to the market as a new maker in 2019 and kind of trying to establish your identity, I was curious about where you see yourself in that space.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole thing about establishing identity, it is very difficult to start from scratch and build something that people actually want, that people actually want, while kind of trying to grow that out into the different lines that I have today. When I first started the brand, I wanted it to be a sort of a standard ready to wear line that was going to have, a lot of the different Horween leather options, a couple different cool leathers from Stead, or, a couple different tanneries in the United States. From there, once you're actually producing and selling, you kind of understand market trends, and there's other opportunities to kind of grow that into different offerings for customers. So right now I want the brand to be a jack of all trades. So of course we have the standard Goodyear welted line,
Yep.
um, adding on the hand welted line this year, while also standing up a couple other lines which are going to be coming out. um, I'm basically trying to hit every single pricing tier on the market, from a more affordable lifestyle line to the standard Goodyear welt line, to a hand welted line for people who want something a little bit more custom. So I want it to be a one-stop shop for people to pretty much be able to find something within your price range,
Yeah.
for what you like. If you want full custom, or if you want something just standard as sneakers, you could do that as well. So
Wow. Super cool. So it sounds like that the more lifestyle line is going to be priced. Is that even at a lower price point than
yeah, so
yeah, some of
under
these sneakers?
300 for
Yep.
under 300 for sure. So it's going to have sneakers, derbies, some boots as well. I
Yep.
actually, one of the last that I use on the hand welted line, I actually made multiple sets of that last. And
Ah.
so that's going to be used in the actual lifestyle line as well for boots and derbies.
Oh,
So
that's gonna be cool. That's super exciting. Yeah, it's I love the fact that you've curated a specific set of styles. You have your mock toe and your more service boot, sort of cap toe or not or plain toe boots,
yeah,
but still looking broadly and saying, hey, these are the markets and these are the places I want to explore. I think that's super, super neat. It's challenging, I can imagine. Where,
yeah,
where would you say the largest, and granted, I
yeah,
feel like the vast majority of where you've what you've offered so far has been through your Spanish, the Goodyear welted line, and
correct,
the hand welted line is very new.
correct.
So I presume the large majority of your sales will come from the Goodyear welted line, but I was curious about level of interests and sort of what you've
Yeah.
appreciated as you've kind of rolled these brand lines out.
Yeah, yeah, no, the standards, are good. Standard Goodyear welted line is kind of the bread and butter.
Yep.
That's going to make up around 80% of the sales.
Yeah.
And that one's been a process of growth,
Yeah.
as you kind of understand what makes sense from the different styles that people want, and
Yeah.
also a larger part of that is the business aspect of it,
Yeah.
doing, timing out your releases, from if I have to run a custom leather like the Miriam Tuscanella washed kangaroo,
Yeah.
ensuring that I can get that in a timely manner, making sure the pricing on that is correct, so I can get that to the factory in time so they can add it to their production line for the correct season.
Yeah.
So there's a lot more
Kind of.
business to it than actual the boot. Making the boot is easy.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
the everything else that comes with that makes it way more complicated. Standing up new lines,
Yeah.
um, that's a uh, that's a big process to try and do.
Yeah.
This year, tried to stand up three at the same time,
Yeah.
which was probably a mistake in hindsight, but that's what I wanted to do. So
Yeah.
we're getting there. It's just sometimes those things they just take time. You get setbacks, and you have to figure out how to move forward.
Sometimes you live and learn, I guess. Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, it's all trial and error. All
oh
this
my
whole thing is
gosh.
trial and error.
I
So
think it was you and I when we were kind of texting about these boots. I think you were talking about some of the leathers fail fairly often when you're like building a boot. Like you have to build in tolerances for boots that when they're getting lasted, the leather might tear or break. Is that correct? Am I remembering that correctly?
yeah, so we ran a summer line that used
Yeah,
a lot of different leathers from a lot of different tanneries. We used a Merriam Tuscanello horse butt.
yeah.
So horse butt in general, similar to shell, has a higher than normal break rate.
Interesting.
So when
Something I
you're
wasn't really aware of, but that is a known thing, it sounds like, on the production side.
yeah, when you're lasting on the lasting machine, sometimes you're going to lose a couple pairs.
Yeah.
So you have to account for that, and that's also why horse butt is on the more expensive side.
Yeah.
Because with any production, you're going to have at least a certain percentage of leather that's going to be either lost to maybe the clicking just didn't go how they wanted it to, or there just was a lot of defects in the leather that you find out during QA once it's done,
Yeah.
that you kind of have to go back and kind of redo it because it looks bad.
Yeah.
Uh, but
Wow.
you're gonna lose something. It's just with horse, you lose a lot
Because
more.
it's gotten so popular in the community, and I feel like everything I'm seeing is Merriam or Shinky oiled horse butts or
Yeah.
horse hides, and I just assumed that part of that was because it was easier to work with, but clearly it's not always
No.
that easy to work on.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes the yield isn't as great too. Like
yeah.
there are some hides I can get 1 to 2 boots. There are some that
Mhm.
I'm sorry. There are some that I can get a couple boots out of, and there are
Yeah.
some I can just get 1 to 2.
Yeah.
Given that there may be defects in the leather, so that also drives the price as well. Because you have to account for that stuff. Otherwise, it's an automatic loss. So
Part of how you define your brand is through the choice of leathers that you offer, and that's something that I've really appreciated about you at a more palatable price point than say Viberg, who does similar things, offering and rolling out lots of different types and brands and
yeah.
trees and all this. Is you offer that in your Goodyear welted line. Who are you working with in terms of tanneries, and do you have
Yeah.
any favorites or any things that you feel like I was kind of curious about that process of defining the brand
Yeah.
around the leathers and how that process evolved.
Um, that's been a it's been a work in progress. I
Yeah,
mean, I run pretty much everything you can find.
yeah,
That's not always it doesn't always make the most sense from a pricing perspective because I try to keep things reasonable.
you do.
For example, like if you run a Chrome Excel from Horween, but you run a Dr. Soul on a ready to wear, you know, it's going to shoot the price up. I generally don't like to do that in the ready to wear line,
Yeah,
but sometimes it just looks good. So we're gonna run it.
yeah.
But I run a lot of different things from like Law
Mhm.
to Gallon to Wicked and Craig,
Yeah,
to Merriam, Horween. I try to mix and match as much as possible and
yeah,
try to also find some really, really cool leathers, like goat. So
yeah. I've
yeah,
heard a little
yeah.
bit more
So
about goat. Just talking to some of the like Crown Northampton has a bunch of those kind of in the mix, but not one that I've seen broadly.
yeah. I try to do a lot of research on that to try and
Yeah,
find something that people just generally don't have out there today because I don't see a
yeah,
point in well, I'm more so of the kind of thought that, gives people something that they don't see all the time.
yeah.
Uh, and that's what I try to do with a lot of the different lines.
Well, speaking of something I didn't see all the time, this pair, the Stanton, which is your mocktail model, which I absolutely love. I feel like it's a more comfortable, stylish, I mean, indie style boot because it's got that faux mock toe. But this leather is super cool. It's this washed kangaroo hide from the Merriam Tannery, right?
Yeah, so
And
I saw the idea I got from that. I believe Viberg ran a washed kangaroo in a I want to say it was a Moschio. It was another dark brown color. And so what I did was I reached out to Miriam and said, "Hey, can you do a washed kangaroo in a Tuscanello?"
yeah,
And pretty much Miriam can run any color. I'm sorry, they can run any tannage you want
yeah.
with their assortment of leathers. You just basically just have to tell them what you want, or you could send a swatch and they can run a custom